Hey everyone, this is Gary from Gary's Place. Welcome to Gary's Place. Just wanted to do a video on a little design I've been working on. If you guys have been following my channel, you know that I've been working on getting an E3D V6 clone installed on my printer. And well, it's been a lot of trouble, okay, because searching the internet, couldn't find any type of mount that was already out there. I did find some shrouds that said they were for it, and unfortunately, they didn't work. I had a video out earlier about my failure installing that, just because it was very poorly designed. So I found a Fang that I liked and was set up for the V6. And I printed it out because it said it would directly install, but it did not, unfortunately. So I had to design my own adapter, pretty much. Okay, so I'm gonna put this on Thingiverse. I'm gonna probably also do a video, kind of showcasing what I did here. But just for today, I wanted to talk about the design aspect of this. Okay, so obviously had to go through version 1, version 2, version 3, and then version 4 is the one that I think I got everything right on, and that's currently on the printer. But I'm not gonna go into that today. But I just wanted to talk to you about this real quick. So this was a failed print, but being that this video is about design, I wanted to kind of make a point about everything that you do when you're designing something, every failure that you have. I keep them all. I mean, obviously up until you have the final product, but you got to make sure that you're learning as much as you can about each failure in order to decide what you have to do to, fix it. Now, this was a failure. And the reason that I kept it, though, was because obviously you want to get as much information off of each failure as you can. This was a failed print as well, but I decided, well, hey, this is just the end here because it printed from this side up. Okay, so first of all, it let me know, how the brim was going to be, because obviously with this printed up like that, or up like this, I needed to add a raft to it in order to make it secure to the bed. So this let me know that my raft was going to be good enough to hold it down. I have had issues in the past with, things not sticking properly. It's probably all my fault, but hey, what do you know? But, this also let me know, so this is that end there. It let me know the distance here, so I could put my fan up to it, my hot end up to it, and decide if the clearance was going to be proper. It's got a piece of the channel on it because I put a channel going all the way around, which I'll talk about in a second. So I could see that the channel was the right size and all that. And unfortunately, each step of the way I had to take my printer apart because I only have one printer. So unfortunately, I couldn't, make my new one on a different printer and then try it, and leave the printer taken apart. I unfortunately had to keep putting the printer back together, taking it apart, putting it back together was a big pain. So then moving on to my second failure. Now, this one, once I got it printed out in full, I realized that these holes didn't line up. And I was having the damnedest time getting this on there. Now, when I first started out, this actually had a large lip on it, probably about to here, because I wanted it to have a nice grip on the plate. Okay, and then on the Sunlu, there's little notches in the edge of the plate, so I put some extrusions coming out here, hoping that they would lock into lock into those notches and, provide more stability. And then, after I realized that, okay, first of all, this this edge, the overhang, being too long made it impossible to install. Okay. I realized that these notches were kind of a waste of time because, you know, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 bolts holding this down. And I've got a raised lip here kind of holding it to the corner. So really didn't decided at this point that I didn't need that, but hey, I had to make sure that my holes were lined up properly and everything else. So I went ahead and I broke the edge off. I broke these out. And then I realized that this hole wasn't large enough and that I couldn't, you know, because you got to try to figure out everything you can, because the more that you learn from your failures, the quicker you are to get to your triumphs, right? So, you know, a whole bunch of things. Like I couldn't fit the nuts in here, so I expanded these holes a little bit. I expanded these holes because the screws wouldn't go into them, and I actually had to thread them into it. On this end, the hot end actually fit very nicely into this, but these holes had to be threaded through. But I decided, you know what, I kind of like having to thread it into here and then thread it into the nuts because I feel that that would just hold a lot more stability. So this groove, for installation purposes, I mean, this would hold just fine. There's two little studs that come out here that have threads in them, but I realized that I was never going to be able to get this on because I have my overhung edge here. I have a bolt here. That's what this hole is supposed to be for. And then when it came down to this, I realized that unless I made this channel a lot longer and made it wider, that I was never going to get the thing on. And then I also, once this was printed out, this is my hole right here for the LED. I realized that with the angle that I had put the hole in, I'll show you here, it comes out at an angle, that all this was going to do was shine directly onto the hot end, so that was pretty much useless. So I went on to revamp this. I also added a little groove here for the wiring and a little tab here so that you can zip tie the wiring to it, which also made me have to do a recess for this bolt here. So moving on to version 2, I figured I learned as much as I could off of this one, redid it. Okay. The hot end fit nicely in here, but when I bolted it together to the fang that I printed out that had pretty much an identical piece on the other side so they could clamp together, I realized that these didn't come together all the way. Like if I tightened the bolts all the way, there was going to be a gap between this surface and the surface of the fang. So I decided to make it longer. Okay, so this is my next version. So as you can see, I lengthened this slot here and made it a little wider so I could install this and not get caught up on it. I widened this hole out a little bit. I widened these nut holders out a little bit. I widened these holes a little bit so that I could get everything in there. And I made the overhang very, very small, which I realized was also a mistake because now I don't really have an overhang. I mean, that's not going to hold anything. So that's why this was a failure, because of that. Also, I had widened these holes because I wanted the screws to just go right through, and unfortunately I still had to thread them through, so I made those a touch bigger in the next run. I realized now that I could actually get this part way on, or most of the way on, now that I could fit it over those studs, that there's a little angle in the plate. So I needed to put a notch in here to get around that. Let's see, what else did I learn from this one? Oh, right. The other thing that I learned from this one was that when I redid this, I made this a little bit, or I made this circle go in a little bit farther. by enlarging the two, but unfortunately I put a fillet in here which somehow made this a touch wider, and then the hot end didn't sit in it, so I had to go back to the drawing board on that one and fix that. See here, I relocated that. I relocated the hole for the LED. Had to make that a slight bit larger, and then I have this groove here for the wiring to come around, because I decided that I wanted the wiring to come around here so that it could come back around to the hot end instead of trying to duck it through here, and then I would have ended up with a little bit of a clearance issue because the turn would have been a little too great. But that's what I learned from that one. Moving on. So now I get to the second to last version of this. I had to enlarge this hole. This is something I forgot about the last one. Now that I was able to get this about on, I realized that the screw didn't actually... The screw that this hole was put in there to go over needed... or was a little bit sorry guys. This hole was a little bit off-centered, had to be moved in a little bit, so I did that. And I made my channel a little bit longer, as you can see there, but I didn't want to make it too long. I just wanted a little bit of a nub coming out around that. I ended up shortening this just a little bit because I realized that I didn't really need it to be this long, and I figured that it would, it wouldn't be a great idea with the structural integrity of that. This notch worked perfectly now that I put that in there. And I still had a little bit of an issue here fitting the hot end in, so in my last edition of this, I actually kind of squeezed this in a little bit. It made these cuts go a little bit deeper. I also realized now that I could get this all the way on, because I made the clearance of this bolt, I was running into the other bolt, so I had to make a little notch here to get around that. So each step of the way, guys, I mean, obviously from the beginning, my first failure to my last failure, I changed a lot less. So the first time I went back, I revamped it. I changed a lot of things, a lot of dimensions, moved things around, everything else like that. And then on my last go around, it was just the minor tweaks that I needed to do to get this thing right. So I could then get to the final installation once it all fit, and then figured out what issues I was going to have there. I assumed that I was going to have to make another version of this after I was actually able to install it, because then I could install everything to it. Fortunately, though, the last version of this actually worked out great, and I will be releasing that shortly. I'll be posting it on Thingiverse, and probably have a couple other issues I ran into that I'll talk about. So that's great for the next video, but for today I'm all done. If there's one thing you guys can take away from this video, is that when you're designing parts, especially parts that are supposed to go on an assembly that you did not design, there's going to be a decent amount of back and forth, but it's always best to A, keep all of your failures so that you have something to look back on until you get to the final product, and B, make sure that you learn as much as you can from each failure. If that means that you got to break pieces apart in order to get something installed enough to find out if the rest of it's okay, or whatever you got to do. Manually modifying these things so that you can have less failures, because let's face it, this part took about 4 hours to print, and I mean, it's not really that long, especially being that it's, you know, a little complicated there, but you want to make sure that you're learning as much as you can from each one, so that you only have to do this as many times as you actually have to do it, right? So thanks for stopping at Gary's Place. Hope this helps you guys out in your own designs, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm probably going to be going over how to install this, and what to pair it with and everything else like that. But like I said, I really wanted to get a V6 clone onto mine. I wanted something all metal. You know, if you guys have been watching my videos, you know that I'm really big on you know, using PETG and having a setup that can handle a large flow. So after I get this all set up, and I'll get this out on Thingiverse for you guys, my next step is to see how far I can crank this thing up and how large of a nozzle I can get in there, because I want to print as quickly as possible, you know, do some quick prototyping, you know, and all the fun things we all print out. I want them to go as quickly as possible, and you know, that requires a little tinkering. So, all right, guys, thanks for stopping at Gary's Place, where you're always welcome, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. If you found any of this interesting or this helped you out, please do me a favor and subscribe, and throw some comments down below. If you want to see some content that might help you out, please feel free to let me know, and I will do my best to get something out for you. All right, guys, take care. Bye.